My name is Mike Crater. I am the district sales manager for the Midwest group for Rhino Carbon Fiber. Um, Today's subject matter for our webinar is going to be the crack lock stitches specifically. So we're going to go through some of the different applications, some of the procedures that are involved with those. At the end, I will open it up for questions. So please leave yourself as muted through the duration of it. There is a chat bar and there is a questions bar. So if there's a particular slide that catches you guys' interest or you have a question about it, you can go ahead and type that question out and I can circle back to it at the end to offer further clarification or answer any questions that you guys have with that. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. So for those of you that have not seen the crack lock, it's something that we're extremely proud of. We're the only ones on the market that have anything like it. It's pretty unique in the sense of a lot of the different applications that you can get into, you're fairly unlimited as far as what you can do with it. Essentially anything poured concrete that's cracked can be stitched with it. That's just kind of the dumbed down version. So kind of where we grew up out of as a company was kind of out of a form of necessity. Our founder, Luke Seacrest, owned a very large foundation repair and waterproofing company in Central Ohio. I ran that company for him for about 5 or 6 years, played a pretty integral role in its growth. Started out as a very small couple-man crew company and turned into, a $10+ million a year company that was in 4 states. So a lot of the things that you're going to see that we offer are kind of geared towards handling a specific type of repair. So a lot of our material is going to be in kit form, and that is the intention behind that is so you guys can hand that kit to a crew member and know that they're going to go out and do that job, have everything that they need with very little waste or loss involved in that. So, that's kind of where we started with the whole thing. The Basement Guys was founded in 2000. In 2001, they were an early adopter of carbon fiber repair products. We were actually using a competing product at that point, and that's where Advanced Basement Products was formed to house Rhino Carbon Fiber. So there were some things that were not loved about the system that was being used, so Luke decided to just create his own. That's where the patents came in for the top and bottom attachment, which is solely for Rhino Carbon Fiber. That pertains to our bowed wall repair kit, which we won't be discussing today. But we do have a provisional patent pending on the crack locks, and that is worldwide at this point. We are actually part of the AGT Products Inc., which is based out of Mississauga. So they have several locations and are several different offerings as far as products go. The dry core subfloor panels, barricade, Informer, and then Rhino is part of that family as well. Kind of a brief background on carbon fiber itself, how it kind of came to be, and its development through the years here. So it was actually kind of discovered by accident by Edison when he was developing the light bulb filament. He said it was super strong, but not a very good material for light bulbs. From there, it kind of sat idle for a while. In the 50s, it was kind of discovered that this material was extremely lightweight, offered great tensile strength. So then in the mid-80s, other countries started to get into the research and development of it even further to kind of manipulate the fibers and turn it into what we have today. So it's basically used across all types of different industries, from car parts to aerospace, and now it's made it into, the commercial, civil, and residential repair markets because of its strength, because of its lightweight, it's non-corrosive, certain applications that can be fireproof, can be used for size and corrector fitting, so that the opportunities are pretty much endless when it comes to using carbon fiber for repairing damaged concrete. So specifically to the crack lock for our subject matter today, we'll start with some of the advantages compared to other products that would be on the market. So the crack lock is going to offer a much faster installation. Our tolerances are extremely tight during the manufacturing phase. So you can go out and site prep your entire job with a single crack lock or a template. And know that every crack lock is going to be identical to the point to where you're not going to have to make any adjustments. So a lot of guys will send their crew members out and do site prep for the entire project. even before they had the crack locks on hand. So it's going to be a higher strength repair, and that's done by obviously the tensile strength of the carbon fiber itself. But what's truly unique about the crack lock is you have a mechanical bond. So it has, we call them nodules on either end, or hoops, and that actually mechanically links with the concrete itself. So you're not relying purely upon your epoxy bond. You actually have a mechanical bond with the concrete itself. So compared to other products on the market, it's far less expensive. It's non-corrosive. A lot of stitch products are going to be rebar. Some people will just bend rebar and make huge cuts in the concrete and set the rebar. You know, ours is the least invasive because of the fact that you're only drilling 2 holes and making a single pass with a saw or tuck point grinder. So you're removing very little concrete, which really, you know, helps that, because obviously the concrete's already damaged. So the idea is to remove as little as possible, disturb it as least as possible, and get the reinforcement strength back in there. A lot of our installers will use the crack locks to reduce their service calls on other types of repairs that they do, and we'll get into that a little bit further here. And obviously it's a very clean installation just because you're not removing a lot of concrete, so you're not creating a lot of dust. You know, you're not taking out huge portions of concrete or repouring concrete because of the cracks that are developed. So this is a very clean, minimally invasive repair. So a lot of our customers will use the crack lock to increase the value for their customers on certain types of repairs, like crack injections or crack repairs, just to prevent them from cracking below the surface or the cracks from reopening. So it's a great opportunity to potentially upsell a job or offer your customers a better form of repair just by getting the reinforcement capabilities of the crack lock into that damaged area. Obviously, they won't decay or corrode over time. You know, it's going to be watertight. Water does not affect carbon fiber at all, unlike your steel rebar. Very quick install time. It's the tensile strength of the crack locks are, you know, they range anywhere from 100,000 psi to 150,000 psi. So it's going to be substantially stronger than the concrete itself. So it can take quite the load. When we do our in-house and third-party testing, it's a pretty dramatic event to watch one of these things explode on our tensile loader. You know, it's not a slight tear or a slow process. It basically just loads to the point and then explodes. I mean, we have a piece of plexiglass shield in front of it to protect everybody around it, because it's quite eventful when it happens. And like I discussed, the key benefit of the crack lock is, and even over our carbon fiber staples, which we still offer, is just the mechanical bond that it has to offer. And then you have a really high return on your investment. You know, crack locks are about $7 a foot for a crack lock and the epoxy to install it. Most of our installers, we hear prices just depending upon market, ranging from $50 to $100 a linear foot. So with the speed of the installation and the relatively minimal cost of the material itself, there's quite an opportunity there to see a nice return on your investment. So your general guidelines for installation is going to be extremely simple. Depending upon the application, and this is kind of a case-by-case scenario, you know, we typically ask that you consult with our engineer or us to kind of see what spacing would be recommended. But a general rule of thumb is 8 to 12 inches. For pools, it tends to be that 8-inch mark. For general slab repair, wall repair, 12-inch centers is typically okay. But if you get into a thicker slab, or you're going to have a warehouse application, there's going to be, you know, heavy machinery running over it all the time. That's what I mean by give us a call. Depending upon the application, there may be some adjustments that need to be made. But at those 8 to 12-inch centers, you basically can trace the crack lock with a marker. You go ahead and drill out your 5/8-inch holes on either end, and you want to be about 1 inch deep, and you're going to make a single pass with either a tuck point grinder or a saw. As you can see here, these guys in the center there, they have just a normal saw with a concrete blade on it. you can get away with just a tuck point grinder or a grinder with a concrete blade on it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. As I mentioned, some of our customers have gone to the trouble of making a wooden template. This was a job that was out in California. I believe they had over 1,000 crack locks that they were installing, so they sped it up by making their template. In this case, the engineer had actually called for additional crack locks to be outside of the crack itself. So this is what we call the weak zone, or the area that's been affected by the crack. So typically in this area, other than the crack itself, you're going to have spalling or microfractures that occur in the concrete itself. So that's where the 12-inch design is intended to get you all the way out past that area to get to sound concrete. In this event, due to the age of the concrete, the engineer requested that there be additional crack locks further out into that area. So they basically did a single, then a double, and then a single all the way across these cracks that were in this particular slab. After you have your site prepped, your drills or your holes drilled and the cuts done, you'll want to obviously blow them out or shop vac them out, depending upon your state and what their guidelines are for dust control. A lot of guys are having to go with confinement at this point. Blowing it out is no longer really acceptable. So, you know, like they have there, hook your tuck point grinder up or your saw up to shop vac so you can reduce or greatly reduce the amount of dust that's produced. But once you have all that cleaned out, you can basically go ahead and hand apply or hand trowel in the epoxy into the crack lock locations. You want to have a base layer of epoxy in there, and then you will set your crack lock, and then you're essentially going to level that location off with the high strength paste. If it settles a little bit, you know, if you had some voids around the crack lock and it kind of makes its way down there, you can go back and retop it off after you've installed, you know, your job. You can kind of go in there and use the high strength paste as a leveling agent. So this is a comparison to some of the other products that would be on the market. We're going to give you guys some examples. The pictures on the right are actually our product. It's going to be our carbon fiber staple. So the crack lock, we like to call it an evolution of the staple itself. So it's pretty similar as far as the strengths go. But with the kind of the staple shape, you're relying a lot on the epoxy bond rather than a mechanical bond. If that slab were placed in tension, you know, essentially the shape of the staple would want to flatten out, and you would be relying purely on the epoxy bond to be able to keep that from happening. So it takes a great amount of tension on that to place that staple in tension. So that's where kind of the shortcoming of the staples come from, and the majority of our contractors that used to install staples have switched to the crack lock just because of the mechanical bonding and the ease of install. The product on the left there is going to be your traditional bent rebar. At least this one is stainless steel, so it won't rust. But we'll look at some pictures of a crack lock install, and you can see how much more concrete has to be removed in order to install that. So obviously you're causing more damage to the slab, but in addition to that, you're putting more epoxy back, and the epoxy is the expensive part of any install. So, you know, it's far more invasive, offers less tensile strength, unless you just go with a super large rebar. You know, it's going to take to get to the same tensile strength of the carbon fiber itself, which would obviously result in removing a ton of concrete and a lot of additional labor to do that. So this is another product that's on the market. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a torque lock. So the idea here is you remove, you know, pretty large sections of the concrete itself. You anchor one side, and then the other side is actually anchored. But the idea here is that you're going to torque that crack back together or close it. From what we've heard from our contractor group, typically what ends up happening is you over torque it and you end up cracking the concrete right around the two anchor points. And then you just have large chunks of floating concrete. So, you know, we haven't really done a whole lot as far as testing our product versus theirs. It's more of what we've heard is feedback from guys that have come from this product or have used it previously. Obviously, it's much more time consuming just because of the amount of prep work that you have to do. So, you know, guys that come from this love it purely just because they, you know, save a ton of time as far as installation goes. So these are just a couple examples as far as things that you can use the crack lock on, and we'll go into some of the more common ones here in further detail. But this is just kind of a couple examples of not particular jobs that they've been used on, but applications where they have been utilized before previously. So our first one that we're going to kind of dig into here is going to be the crack lock on your footers and slabs. This is going to be both residential and commercial applications. It can kind of be used interchangeably, and that's due to its adaptable design. So some of our customers that are heavy into piering or slab leveling, they will use the crack locks to support broken footers or to basically tie slabs back together after they've been leveled. It can be utilized to lock down control joints. So if you have a space that's being repurposed, it's pretty common, especially where I live. A lot of old warehouses and businesses and stuff are being turned into residential condos. So a lot of different loads, a lot of different uses. So there's a lot of things that goes into that as far as reinforcing goes. So any control joints, I mean, it could be a control joint on a driveway, things of that nature. If you were to cut a new control joint in a driveway and wanted to abandon an old one, you could use the crack lock to lock that down, so it's no longer a failed point. We have been in some DOT projects as well, and that's an example of a thicker slab where we can adapt the design to be basically set deeper and a thicker slab. And the point of that would be so you could get multiple crack locks in a location. So that's another great thing as far as the design goes, is it's essentially stackable per location. We have some examples of that we'll go into a little bit further here. So yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in the very beginning, anything poured concrete. So it could be a swimming pool, a pool deck, it could be the basement floor, the garage, sidewalk, the walls, anything that's poured, a retaining wall, anything that's poured that needs to be reinforced in a residence can be taken care of with a crack lock to get the reinforcement back in there, to get the strength back to that crack. For your commercial applications, it's pretty much universal. If it's poured, you can use it to be your bridge decks, on-ramps, off-ramps, parking garages, anything with that would be an ideal application for the crack lock. So this is just kind of a little diagram. I mean, pretty much any basement that you go into in a residence is going to have a crack in it. If it's more than a couple years old, it's going to have a crack in it. So a lot of our installers will train their crews to kind of take a peek at that. And a lot of times it's an upsell opportunity. They'll have a crack lock kit sitting on the truck. Once they've kind of developed a little bit of a relationship with the client during the installation, they'll say, hey, I have something that I could use to fix that crack. You probably never noticed it. Probably really not that alarming to you, but I have this product that this is what it is, and this is how we can fix this. Is that something you're interested in? And it's a great solution for it. It basically keeps those cracks from being able to move around enough to where eventually one day hydrostatic pressure pushes water into that crack and does create a problem for that homeowner. So once people learn that it's minimally invasive, it's not going to take a whole lot of time to install it, and it's really not that expensive to take care of. It's pretty much an easy sale from that point. And then it just kind of progressively shows you what the after effects of the installation would be once the crack locks are in there. And this would be an example of that. So this is actually one of my customers who is in the Charlotte region. They work with a very large home builder that's in multiple states throughout the U.S. So this is a residential slab on grade. So you can see here that there is a crack that had developed, and there's actually a control joint in there. Why they cut a control joint in a slab, I don't really know. But to make matters worse, they went ahead and this particular homeowner selected hardwood floors, which were glued directly to the slab. So I believe this one, they had tried to repair it 2 or 3 times with, just filling the crack and basically hoping that it would hold together. But eventually they just got tired of pulling up and replacing this floor. The homeowner was obviously not very happy with the multiple repeat visits. So they brought this company in to install the crack lock. This was installed, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and they've had absolutely zero issues whatsoever. So you can see there's kind of standard spacing displayed here. When they got to this joint here, they made their adjustments to kind of miss that cut that was in there. So again, that just speaks to the adaptability of the material itself. This is another example, very similar situation. You can see here there's actually a control joint that was cut. It started to do what it was supposed to do, but then ultimately failed to break and then split off over here towards this sliding glass door and then re-cracked back here as well. So not only did they fix the crack, but they also locked this joint down to keep it from basically re-cracking in the future. This is an example of a footer repair. This is actually with the staple. So this is a fairly old picture. This would now evolve into using the crack lock, but same methodology. In this application, the crisscross method is preferred, just because not only are you trying to stitch it together, but you're obviously going to be driving off of the bottom of that pier, so you could end up with some differences in differences of pressure on that footing itself, especially since in this case it completely cracked and dropped. So they went ahead and did the crisscross method just to make sure that they had the tensile strength in multiple axes. And this is a beautiful installation. This is actually with our partner Ardex in Australia. So this was a residential condo complex that had free-floating patio decks on the outside of it, and they had all cracked right after they had been poured. You can see they haven't even had a chance to get the handrails up yet. So they used the crack locks to basically stitch those back together to keep them from having to be completely removed and redone. And after this, there was a coating that was put on it, so anybody that were to use that residence would be none the wiser to the repair. But you can see how clean the installation is. The profile of the crack lock is extremely thin, so again, you're not removing a lot of concrete, you're not disturbing anything, and at the end of the installation, it all basically goes away. Here's another example of crack locks on a slab. You can see here, kind of unique about this is this engineer called for the crack locks to be installed on kind of an angle rather than being directly perpendicular. The reason for that is they were worried if they put them all in line due to the age of the slab and condition of the slab, that they would create a possibility for fractures to occur outside of the crack where the holes were drilled. So this contractor was advised to kind of offset them and put them on different angles to avoid that from happening. This is the picture I was talking about where the crack locks were stacked. So this was an on-ramp to a major interstate, and the engineers at the State Department figured that they should put 3 crack locks per location. So in each one of those prep sites that you see there, there's actually 3 crack locks installed. I believe at a 5-inch depth, 3-inch depth, and then a 1-inch depth is what those were set at. And that was calculated out to be adequate for the stresses that would be exerted on that slab. This slab unfortunately cracked within a month of it being installed, so this was used as an alternative to remove and replacement. And this is just a couple more pictures. After they had finished the installation, they went back down and reground the concrete there to get their etching back in there. That way, they could have the drainage that they needed on that surface. This is just a couple more examples of crack locks and some of the things that they can be done as far as the design work would go. So our next subject is going to be poured walls. It can be installed universally between your residential and commercial structures. You're going to be reinforcing that crack or the weak zone to prevent this from getting any further. And this is kind of where you get into the application of using the carbon fiber crack locks to reinforce other types of repairs. And you can even use them to reinforce previously done work as well. So if you were to go onto a job site that had a crack injection that was 10 years old and it had re-cracked, and you were going to be doing another injection on there to try to get it to dam back up, you could use the crack locks to basically keep it from re-cracking a couple of years later on. For vertical applications like foundation walls or retaining walls, the high strength paste needs to be mixed by hand for a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes. The reason for this is it's a thermal epoxy, so it generates its own heat. So by hand mixing it, it helps kick it off. It'll thicken it up a little bit. So when working with it on vertical surfaces like a wall, that's a necessary step. If you're going into a slab or something of that nature, you can typically just dispense it straight to it. But with working on vertical applications, you need to go and hand mix application for the epoxy. So this would be your typical crack that you would reinforce on a foundation wall here. You're going to have your main crack, and you're going to have your little fissures that come off of it. So that's the idea of getting out past that area. And then, obviously this kind of illustrates what the crack locks would be for that particular installation. Here's a couple of real world examples for you. And this is actually a combination of applications. So this was a crack injection as well. They actually used a repair mortar to set the staples in this picture, but it can be done with the same thing with the crack locks. You don't have to use our high strength paste. We can sell just the crack locks themselves. So that's actually really common in pool applications. A lot of those guys have particular products that they've come to love and don't really want to try anything else. So if you have something like that, you're welcome to use it. We just ask that you provide us with the tensile strength of that material so we can make sure it's equal to or greater than the high strength paste that we use for the anchoring portion of the application. A couple more examples. This was in a crawl space, and I believe this was in a basement here. Having pipe protrusions, things of that nature are really common that you're going to have cracks or cracks that develop around a window or a crawl space opening. Those are all great applications for your residential repairs. And one thing that we love when our installers would do, and we train on it pretty heavy, is to do what we call a good, better, and best repair. And a part of that is the crack locks. So what we consider a good repair would be a crack injection as a standalone, or our carbon fiber crack repair as a standalone. A better repair would be those two combined, and the best repair would be a crack injection with the crack locks countersunk into the concrete itself, and then you have your carbon fiber crack repair, which is surface mounted. So that gives you defense against water. That would give you the tensile strength inside of the wall with the crack locks, and then you would have the carbon fiber on the surface to basically help control any spalling or cracking that may occur on the surface. So it gives you multiple lines of defense against water, and it gives you obviously a tremendous amount of tensile strength in that area that has been previously damaged. So it's really common that our installers that we work with will offer that as a solution to their customers, and the customer can basically decide how far they want to take it. But they'll make sure that all three options are offered. And obviously, a lot of our contractors will increase their warranty as well. So the more that they're able to do during the initial install, they'll increase their warranty time frame for that. Some guys will go as far as offering a lifetime warranty if it's reinforced with both the carbon fiber crack locks and then injected. It's totally up to you as an installer how far you want to go with that. But you're offering a great repair for your homeowners, and you're allowing yourself you're reducing your liability as the company that's doing the installation by having all three of those repairs in place at the time of installation. It basically reduces your service calls and gives you more reassurance that you're not going to have issues with that area further down the line. This is just kind of a progressive picture. So you can see in that previous picture, he had injected that crack, and then this would be the surface mounted carbon fiber on top of everything with the crack locks behind it. Next repair we're going to talk about is going to be for pools and pool decks. I don't know if any of you guys get into that at all, but it's kind of an industry that came to us without really looking for it when we developed the crack lock. We hadn't really considered getting into that arena at all. It kind of fell in our lap, to put it bluntly. but it's become a really great product for that industry. So it can be used in the pool itself or on the pool deck, and it can be used prior to any coatings or overlays or a new coating on the pool itself. It's very, very common that obviously with pools you're dealing with a lot of water, trying to keep the pool water in or the groundwater out. So it's really common that you'll see the crack locks installed with one of our injection kits. The foam is what we typically use for that, just because you're going to have a lot of fill behind the pool or the pool slab. So you need to get something in there that's going to go in there and expand and fill those voids. So mainly our polyurethane is what's used for that, and then in conjunction with the crack locks to keep that from reopening. Obviously the pools must be drained for installation. Our epoxy, the high strength paste, is not marine grade, so you do need to drain that out. The surface needs to be dry prior to any surface installation or crack lock installation. And then templates can be made. You guys saw some pictures of that previously. One of our partners, distributors, ECP, they've actually started the process of creating a couple of prototype templates for the crack lock itself. I think that's something that they may try rolling out to a couple of their key customers that install quite a few of the crack locks, just to kind of field test it and see how it goes. So we'll keep everybody updated on the progress of that. And here's a couple examples. So this was out in California. Obviously, it was a large community pool here. Pretty severe cracking, but what's cool about this is after the fact is, they did a decorative coating or decorative overlay, and this was actually stamped concrete with an artisanal finish. They bring a guy in who does a phenomenal job. A lot of this is going to be hand applied as far as the actual coloring goes of the concrete, the staining of the concrete. But this is the beauty of the repair itself, is you can't tell it's there after the fact. And as the installer, you don't have to worry about that crack reappearing into your new overlay that you just did. So you're able to go out there and safely do this high level of work, knowing that you're not going to be back there within a year to repair something as difficult to repair as that concrete overlay. Here's another example. This is also out in California. This is the one where you guys saw the picture of the template that was called for. You can see the slab was in really rough shape. It actually had a couple other repairs that have been done previously. So kind of over its life, it's seen a lot of different changes and a lot of different applications applied to it. And that's ultimately, you can see even the pitting here. That's why they called for the crack locks outside of it. Here's just a couple of during and after installation pictures of that application. You can kind of see here how they skipped over the control joint to allow that joint to still do what it's designed to do. And then they did a really simple, just concrete coating over top of it, basically a skim coat or a parge coat over top of that surface. And again, what's cool about this is you literally can't see those repairs that were done. And there was a lot of them that were installed below that coating. And this is actually a different job, but they used a conjunction of or a combination of our products here in unison with the injection system to seal this off, to keep groundwater from getting into the pool itself and into the pool shell. And then they used the crack locks there to reinforce that, hold everything together. So they didn't basically have this happen again in the near future because of the fact that they had the ladder support going in here. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of weight pulled on that, a lot of tension pulled on it towards the inside of the pool. So the crack locks are called for to keep that damage from reoccurring. And here's a beautiful picture of inside the actual pool itself. So you can see that we get the question a lot, do I have to remove the coating? And the answer is yes. You need to get to the actual concrete structure itself. That would be the same if you had a parge coat on an older home that has had a parge coating over it. You need to get to the actual concrete structure itself. So in this case, this coating was chipped off and kind of ground off, and then you can see their crack lock locations here. What I really like about this picture, you can see how creative they got with kind of the application of the crack locks here. So if you notice here, they actually intersected them. And again, that's another really cool thing of the crack lock itself. It's just due to its thin profile, you can get away with doing things like that where you couldn't with other products. So, you know, if you see something unique, get a hold of us. I mean, there's always a solution to it. You know, due to the adaptability of everything, you know, our engineer can pretty much consult with your engineer or come up with a design for you for what would be the best way to handle kind of tricky situations like this. A couple more examples of swimming pool repairs. Nothing too special here, but this is the after effect of that repair that was done. So you can kind of see he had it on both sides. This crack had kind of started to develop in the same area here, and this was after his repair. Did a beautiful job and saved these people thousands of dollars as far as having to re-pour those sections and then probably having failures along the pour sections or the pour joints. Last thing we're going to talk about, guys, is a product that we truly love. I've got a couple cases of them in my garage myself, is our Tough Wipes. For you guys on here that are Rhino installers, if you haven't used them, you really should be. For anybody that's new, it's hard for me to sell you the epoxy products that we have without knowing that you have the Tough Wipes with you. So they're specifically designed to remove wet or uncured epoxy. So that could be on you because they're completely safe for your skin. So you're not using like a paint thinner or an acetone. We even have some guys that use diesel fuel to get it off of them, or they'll just wait for it to cure out and then, you know, pick it off of their skin. It's really important to remember everything that comes on contact with your skin, your body absorbs it. So these wipes are completely safe. You don't even have to wash your hands after you use them. But they work really well on cleaning up your tools, your job site, your crew members. A lot of guys will use them to clean out their trucks. But they don't just work on epoxy either. They work on tars and paints and, you know, other material that's typically difficult to get off. It even will take off some of our polyurethanes. As long as you get to it before it's cured, it'll pretty much remove it. And the last thing we always touch on, guys, is we have a full-time marketing department at Rhino, and they're there for you guys to utilize. You know, we're not just here to sell you guys products. We want to see you guys grow. We want to see you guys be successful, not just with our products, just in general. So anything that we can do to help you guys grow your business, and specifically the carbon fiber applications, we're here to help. So we have, you know, animated presentations. We have, you know, presentations that you guys could actually download. A lot of our contractors will put them onto iPads and use it kind of as like a guided sales tool for their inspectors in the field, to where they can kind of walk the homeowners through the different types of applications and different options available to them, just to make sure that there's no opportunities missed and that their customers get the best repairs possible. So that's something that we've designed and is fully available for you. We also have physical sales sheets. So it's basically a downloadable PDF that you could print off that gives a quick synopsis and rundown of the different repairs. So a lot of our installers will just have those for their field inspectors to take with them and then leave with the homeowners themselves. Because 9 times out of 10, as soon as you leave, they're going to further investigate your company and they're going to look at the products that you've specified to be used in their home. So a lot of guys really like to use those. We do a ton of case studies, and we rely purely upon our installers for those. And when we do get one of those from our contractors, we'll, you know, post it on our Facebook, our LinkedIn, all of our different social media avenues, and we'll obviously link you guys to that as well. So it just kind of helps, you know, your company awareness, things of that nature. A lot of our guys have, you know, figured out that social media is extremely important. So that's where the case studies come into play for both us and for you. We have a lot of trade show material as well that we can provide to you. So we have like pull-up banners. You know, obviously we can get you some more of the sales sheets and stuff like that. If you have like a home show coming up, let us know. We can get that kind of material to you, and there's no charge for that. We have all kinds of CGI videos. Our installation videos are online. We have a YouTube channel where we have a bunch of different installation processes, applications. And then what we call hillbilly tests, where we do things like, set a truck on a couple pieces of concrete that has carbon fiber on the bottom of it, just to kind of illustrate the fun side of things. Obviously nothing that an engineer would appreciate, but it's just kind of the fun, shock, and awe of it. I think we have a video with a truck doing a burnout that's tied to a piece of carbon fiber that's pinned in the floor. Just things of that nature. It's kind of fun, but it also helps kind of get the idea across to a lot of people of just how strong this material is. Because a lot of people have heard of it, most of them haven't seen it, and they don't really know what it's capable of. So, kind of fun way of showing some people how cool stuff really is. And all of our technical data is front and center on our website. We actually just redid our website in the last couple months. We previously had a contractor section of our website where you had to have a login to get into it. We moved all of that information to the front side of our website. So if you go into the different types of repairs, you can scroll down to the bottom after the synopsis for those individual repairs. It'll have a safety data sheet. It'll have your technical data sheets, and then it'll have the marketing literature for each type of repair. So any of our products that you guys use in your business, everything is there front and center to be able to train your crews, keep them safe, and then satisfy any engineers or local building departments that want to know exactly what you're putting in there. Everything is there for you. And then lastly, we do apparels and giveaways, stuff like that. So if you have a couple guys that you want to get Rhino shirts for or things of that nature, we have some hats, some office supply material, anything like that that you guys are interested in, get in contact with us and we'll be happy to get that out to you.